Hello and welcome to Thoughts on International Business, Marketing and Strategy. My name is Professor Charles Scuba. I'm a professor of the practice at the McDonough School of Business at Georgetown University. Today we have a guest, Walter Bastian, who is a good Georgetown University graduate, but our current Deputy Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Western Hemisphere. Walter, welcome back to Georgetown.
Charlie, thank you very much.
It's great to have you. I worked with Walter at the U.S. Department of Commerce. It was a great privilege. I know that Walter is one of the most respected U.S. diplomats in the Western Hemisphere, in Latin America certainly. But we're here to talk about international business. And Walter, first of all, I'd like to ask you to tell us really what is the importance of the Western Hemisphere to American companies for our U.S. exports and U.S. investment.
Well, I think there are a couple of things you got to keep in mind, I think, in answering that. One is the United States is the major foreign investor in virtually every country in the hemisphere. So we are, our companies are major players. Two, about 42% of our exports, of U.S. exports globally, go to the Western Hemisphere. Now that includes Canada, and I realize that skews it a bit because of the size of the Canadian market for the United States, but nonetheless, in this hemisphere it's 42% of the goods. Keeping in mind also that we've got, I think it's imperative for the United States to ensure that we've got strong economies and strong governments in the region to promote obviously political stability. It eases some of the pressures that we've got here in the United States on some of the services that we provide. And the truth of the matter is I think that most folks from the hemisphere, rather than living in LA or Houston or Washington, D.C., because they're forced to for economic reasons, would rather be back home with their families in a place where they've got a good job and chance for a future.
Well, I know an important part of your work at the Department of Commerce, something that you've been committed to for quite a few years now, is the America's Competitiveness Forum. You're about to hold the 4th America's Competitiveness Forum in November. Can you tell us a little bit about the purpose of the ACF and what you hope to achieve and what its progress has been?
Yeah, the idea of the ACF is not to debate whether or not competitiveness is important. That's a given. What we're trying to do is to show our colleagues in Latin America, and these are government folks, these are business executives, these are NGOs. What is the environment? What's the business environment going to look like 20, 30 years down the road? And how do you prepare for that today? What are the challenges? And the challenges that we're looking at, we're taking a look at small business. I mean, that's where a lot of the new export growth is going to come from. But we have to do more of that. So what are the tools that small business needs? We're taking a look at green technologies because for environmental reasons, also for just good sound business practices, using alternative sources of energy. We're looking at logistics. How do you quickly, efficiently move product from your country to another market? And lastly, and I think one of the fundamental problems throughout the hemisphere is the education system.
Yes.
And so what do we do to raise that, to provide our citizens throughout the hemisphere with the tools that they need? And an example that I like to use is the use of junior colleges in the United States. You know, it's an absolute fundamental part of our education system. It doesn't, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist in Latin America the way the model does here or in Canada. You know, you go to 2 years of school here, maybe you're working, maybe you're getting your grades up, whatever it happens to be, but you get credit for those 2 years at a state university, right? It doesn't exist in Latin. There's only one example that I know of in Latin America.
I know in regard to the junior colleges and community colleges in the United States, as our states have worked to attract foreign direct investment, frequently a big part of the package that states pay attention to is using the community colleges, the technology training in the colleges as a fundamental, integral role in, well, if you're going to open if the Japanese or Korean company is going to open an automotive factory in our state, we will help you develop the kind of skills necessary for your employees in the future.
Yeah, I think we need to, and we do a good job of educating folks from other countries and letting them benefit from some of the technologies that our schools have. And I think if you go to a Georgetown, or you go to a Stanford, or you go to a Harvard, they've got pretty well, they've got name recognition, they have brand recognition. What we're trying to do also is to reach out to a lot of those institutions that have been overlooked in the past, the historically black colleges and universities. You know, we're holding our event in Atlanta. So you got Clark, you got Morehouse. I mean, they've got some really good technologies. No, maybe it's not as diverse as the University of Michigan, but they got some areas where they are absolutely world class. How do we take advantage of that? And it's good for the university. And they can create, basically, it's a joint venture with a foreign university. But it also builds a new constituency for trade and for business that previously I think we might have overlooked. I also look at other minority-serving institutions.
Well, and the America's Competitiveness Forum, it's November. You're going to have several heads of state, I believe, attending.
Yeah, that's correct. And we've got 50 or 60 ministers. We've got CEOs from major U.S. corporations and major foreign corporations. So, and the idea here is I just want to capture the imagination of folks and let them see where things are going and how do you prepare for it.
Now, I know I attended two of them in the past, and I was very impressed by the quality of the panelists, the subjects addressed, and the participation by the vast majority, or almost every democratically elected government in the Western Hemisphere. So good luck in that, Walter.
Thank you very much.
I hope to attend myself.
I'd like to see you there and bring some of your students with you.
That is a deal.
Okay.
That's should be a benefit of going to Georgetown University. Now, I'd like to ask you a few more questions, specifically about our trading relationships with our Latin American partners. NAFTA is an important agreement. CAFTA is certainly working. We're having good, I think, success with CAFTA. We have Colombia and Panama before Congress. What is the importance of FTAs to the U.S.?
Well, we have free trade agreements with 17 countries worldwide. The majority of those are in Latin America. But it's very interesting. If you take a look at our trade balance, with those 17 countries, we run a trade surplus. You know, so I think, and we're developing markets for our companies, and we're establishing rules of the game that are secure. And by that I mean a free trade agreement is more than just lowering tariffs. This deals with labor issues, environmental issues. It deals with intellectual property protection. All those factors that are really important to business. And so these are the things that we're looking at in a free trade agreement sense. We have chapters on every one of these. It spells out the responsibilities of all the parties. And it's not just paying lip service to them, it's actually having these things in the law of the country.
Well, U.S. companies benefit from free trade agreements. I noticed that we were mic'd today by a company called Shure, S-H-U-R-E, which is based in Chicago. And I went to visit Shure, and they said if they passed the Colombia Free Trade Agreement, they would automatically have, their products would have a 15% price advantage. They suffer from a 15% tariff in Colombia right now. But in addition, they would have 15% more money to spend on marketing in Colombia to create preference.
And if I could just add one thing, I think it's important to remember too that currently, for both, we have 3 pending agreements with South Korea, Panama, and Colombia. But in the case of Panama and the case of Colombia, they already have duty-free access to the U.S. market under other trade preference programs. So what we're looking for is reciprocity. We want to be able to penetrate those markets with the same ease they penetrate ours.
That's a very important point, Walter. And I think a lot of people misunderstand the true nature and benefits of free trade agreements to American businesses and workers. Well, Walter, thank you very much for coming and being a part of our show. On behalf of Dr. Michael Zincota and Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business, I want to thank you for being with us today on Thoughts on International Business, Marketing, and Strategy. Thank you very much.
Charlie, thank you.